Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the AI language. Today, we're diving into something super exciting, building user interfaces with Flutter. Flutter is an amazing framework that lets you create beautiful apps with ease. And here's the best part. It works for mobile, web, and desktop applications, all from the same code base. Isn't that awesome? Now, in this video, we're going to explore one of the most essential building blocks of any Flutter app, the scaffold. Think of the scaffold as the skeleton or foundation of your app. It's what gives your app structure. It provides spaces for things like an app bar at the top, a main content area, a floating action button, and even a navigation drawer. Once you understand the scaffold, you'll have the confidence to start building amazing user interfaces in Flutter. But before we dive into the code, let's make sure your environment is set up. Now, there are two ways you can follow along with this tutorial. First, we have the AI Language Playground. It's available free for all of our YouTube subscribers. You can access it by visiting theailanguage.com/play. All you need to do is log in to the AI Language Playground. And since it's cloud-based, you don't need a powerful local machine. Everything is ready to go, and you can jump straight into Flutter development. If you prefer working on your local machine, that's totally fine too. You can use VS Code or Android Studio, whichever you're comfortable with. The steps we'll cover here are exactly the same, so you won't miss anything. All right, once you're all set up and the playground or your local environment is ready, you'll see a file called main.dart. This is where we'll begin. What is main.dart? This file is the entry point of your Flutter app. It's where everything starts. At the top of the file, you'll see a function called main. Now, this is the very first thing Flutter runs when your app starts. It's like the ignition key for your car. Without it, nothing moves. Inside the main function, you'll find another function called runApp. This function tells Flutter, hey, load the widget I'm passing to you and display it on the screen. Now, in the default code, runApp is loading a widget called MaterialApp. Let's break this down step by step so you can understand what's happening. What is a MaterialApp? The MaterialApp widget is like the outermost wrapper of your app. It's what brings in Google's material design. Material design gives your app a polished, modern look, consistent with Google's design principles. Without MaterialApp, you wouldn't have access to features like themes to style your app, navigation to move between screens, widgets like the AppBar, which you'll see in a moment. Think of MaterialApp as the backbone of your Flutter app. It makes sure everything looks and behaves the way it's supposed to. Inside the Material app, you'll see a property called Home. This property tells Flutter, okay, here's the widget I want you to display first when the app runs. In the default code, this home property is set to a text widget that displays the words Hello World. So what is a text widget? All right, let's talk about the text widget. The text widget is one of the simplest and most commonly used widgets in Flutter. It's designed to do one thing, display text. Whether it's a title, a sentence, or even just a single word, the text widget is what you use to show it on the screen. So let's put this all together. The Material app wraps the entire app and sets up the structure, and the text widget displays the words Hello World, which is passed to it as the data property. Isn't that simple? All right, let's continue. Let's see how we can take this foundation and build something even better. All right, the first thing we're going to do is replace the text widget with a scaffold widget. To do that, go to your code and write scaffold like this, with 2 parentheses, scaffold. That's it. Now, this is what your code should look like. Let's break this down to understand what's happening. First, we have the Material app. This widget wraps your entire app in Flutter's material design framework. It ensures your app has a consistent look and feel with modern UI principles. Next, we have the Home property. This tells Flutter which widget to display first when your app runs. Think of it as your app's starting screen. Finally, we've added the Scaffold widget. The scaffold is like a blank canvas. It's the foundation on which we'll build our app. Now go ahead and click the Run button in the playground or use the terminal if you're on your local setup to compile and run the code. What do you see? A blank white screen. That's your empty scaffold, ready to be customized. Now let's make this look more like an app by adding an AppBar. Inside the scaffold, add a property called AppBar. To do this, write AppBar first like this. Start with the property name in lowercase, then put a colon after it. Next, we add the widget name AppBar, which is the widget that creates the top bar for our app. Now, here's something important to remember. Property names like AppBar use lower camel case. This means they start with a small letter, and any new word in the name begins with a capital letter. Widget names like AppBar use upper camel case. This means they always start with a capital letter, and so do any new words in the name. So in this case, AppBar is the property, and AppBar is the widget we're assigning to it. Next, we'll specify a title property for the AppBar. The title property can take any widget, and for now, we'll pass a text widget to it. This text widget will display the same Hello World text, but now as the title of the AppBar. Here's how your code will now look. Now click Run again. What do you see? A bar at the top with the text Hello World displayed in it. So, what's happening here? Let's break it down. The AppBar property of the scaffold adds a bar at the top of your app. The AppBar widget creates that actual bar. The title property of the AppBar allows us to add a title widget to it. And the text widget, which we've used as the title, displays the Hello World text inside the AppBar. So now we have the beginnings of a real app, a top bar with a title. Isn't that cool? With just a few lines of code, we've transformed the blank white screen into something that already looks like an app. Let's keep building on this in the next part. Now let's add some content to the main area of the app called the body. Below the app bar, we're going to add a new property called body. For the value of this property, we'll first use a center widget. So type center, and then to this center widget, add a child property. The child property is where you specify what should be inside the center widget. For now, let's add a text widget as the child. So your code for the body will now look like this. A center widget with a text widget as its child. But let's make the text a bit more interesting by adding some style. To do this, we'll specify a style property for the text widget. For the value of style, we'll use a TextStyle object. Inside TextStyle, let's set the font size to 24 by writing font size 24. So here's how your code looks now. Run the app now, and you'll see Hello Flutter displayed right in the center of the screen. Let's break this down. Body. This property is part of the scaffold and is used to hold the main content of your app. Center. This widget does exactly what its name suggests. It centers its child widget both horizontally and vertically. Child property. This is a common property in many Flutter widgets. Here, the center widget is the parent and the text widget is its child. Text displays the text Hello Flutter on the screen. Style property and TextStyle object. These allow you to style the text. In this case, we've set the font size to 24 using the TextStyle class. Now let's take it one step further and add a floating action button, or FAB for short. This is the round button you often see in the bottom right corner of apps. Below the body property, add another property to the scaffold called FloatingActionButton. For its value, write FloatingActionButton. That's the widget we'll use. Next, let's add some properties to this button. First, we'll add an onPressed property. This defines what happens when the button is pressed. For now, let's just use a simple print statement inside an anonymous function like this. This is an example of a callback function. Don't worry if this sounds confusing. We'll go into more detail about callbacks in a future video. Next, we'll add a child property, similar to what we did for the center widget. This tells Flutter what the button should display. For our fab, let's use an icon widget to show a plus sign. The icon widget takes a specific icon as its input. In this case, we'll use icons.add, which is a pre-built plus icon that Flutter provides. So here's your updated floating action button code. Now when you run the app, you'll see a button with a plus icon in the bottom right corner. Click it and check the debug console. You'll see the message "Fab pressed." And that's it. You've built your first Flutter app with a scaffold. It now has a structure with an app bar, some centered text in the body, and a floating action button. In the next video, we'll dive into making the app more interactive and exploring additional widgets and functionality. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you next time on the AI language. Happy coding!